The tearaway technique is a method for turning your own unique designs or text into texture plates that you can use with metal clay. The use of the tearaway technique with metal clay was pioneered by Celie Fago, and you can read more about it in her book K&Boo on Silver, because it's particularly good to use with K&Boo. In order for the tearaway technique to work, there are several things that you need to get right, and the first one is the copier that you're using. You need to use a laser copier that has a toner that is iron based. Find out what sort of copier your local copy shop is using, and then search online for the type of toner that it uses. When you've found the toner number, search online for the Material Data Safety Sheet, or MSDS, for that toner. The MSDS is going to give you the ingredients list, and what you're looking for is iron oxide or ferrite. If the toner doesn't have an iron base, then the tearaway technique is not going to work. So this is important, iron-based toner. So the next important ingredient is the paper that you're using. It has to be a glossy surface, not a matte paper, and it needs to be at least 120 GSM. That's the weight of the paper. So the way the tearaway technique works is by causing a reaction between the iron-based toner that's on your paper and a sheet of polymer clay. You sandwich the two together so the toner is touching the polymer clay, and then this causes a reaction. And I'm going to show you how that works later on. But it's really important that you choose the right polymer clay. The polymer clay you want to be looking for is Primo Sculpey, and there are a number of colours that work well with this. The different colours will give you a different depth to the texture. The tearaway technique will give you a shallow texture with smooth edges, so it's really good for K&Boo. But the different types of polymer clay will give you different depths to your textures. Pale colours will give you the deeper texture, so sunshine yellow and white are particularly good for giving you quite a nice deepish texture. The metallics will also give you a texture, and this is metallic gold here. Tearaway textures made with metallics are very subtle, so if you want a subtle effect, this is the one to use. In the demonstration to follow, I'm going to show you the yellow, the gold, and then a mixture of the yellow and gold, so you can see the difference between the depth of the textures for each of these different types of clay. So to roll out the flat sheets of polymer clay that you need for the tearaway technique, you can just roll them out with a rolling pin as you would any other clay, but it does really help and makes your life a little bit easier if you've got a pasta machine. So put it onto its thickest setting and then cut your polymer clay up into thin little segments, line them up along the top and then roll them in. So what this is doing is it's squishing them together. So fold them in half and put them back through the pasta machine with the fold side down so that you don't get any air trapped inside the polymer clay. And just keep folding and rolling, folding and rolling. What you're aiming for is a nice smooth piece of polymer clay that you're then going to use for the tearaway technique. So here's the yellow rolled out as a nice sheet, and the gold again rolled out as a nice sheet, and I've got two identical patterns which have been copied onto the thick paper with the laser toner. So I'm now ready to start the technique. So I'm just going to make sure that the polymer clay is nice and smooth and really adhered to the surface of the glass I'm working on, because I need it to make sure that it's really adhered there. So I've just folded over a little handle on my piece of paper, and I'm going to place it down on the surface. So you see the toner is in contact with the polymer clay. And I'm just rubbing over now to make sure that there's no air trapped inside. So there needs to be nothing that's stopping the toner from touching the surface of the polymer clay. So with the gold, like I did with the yellow, just making sure that there's no air bubbles inside to stop the reaction from happening. So now they're both ready for me to do the next part of the process. So I'm going to use friction and heat to really make sure that the toner is in contact with the surface of that polymer clay, and this friction and heat starts the reaction off. So I'm going to do this for somewhere around a minute on each piece. So they've been sitting for about 7 minutes. It's quite warm today, so I haven't had to do anything else to them. And now I'm just going to do that burnishing again for about another minute. And then I'm going to leave them to sit for about another 7 or 8 minutes, something like that, to complete the reaction. So now is the moment of truth. They've both been sitting, now they're ready. So I'm just going to tear the paper off, which is why it's called the tear away technique. There you go. And so you can see there's a layer of yellow polymer where that black toner was before. That is now on the surface. I'm going to do the same again with the gold. I'm just going to tear that off, and you can see the gold polymer now is on the surface where the toner was. So these now are going to go into the oven, 130 degrees centigrade, for about 20 minutes, and I'm going to bake them. So these ones were all made with the mix of yellow and gold together, and they've been sitting for a while. They've had the rubbing gone on. So here you can see this one here, which is quite a lot of toner on that one, and it's picked up all of the polymer clay. And I've got a couple of small ones here. Again, nicely laid down. It's quite a complicated pattern, that. Just that reaction happens wherever the polymer and the toner come into contact, so it actually doesn't matter really about the size of your lines or anything. And you'll see it with this one. This one had very fine lines. This is from an original lino cut that I did. And you've also got the negative here, so you can use these as a texture plate as well once they're baked. So this has now been baked, and it's very robust. This is the yellow one, and what I'm going to do to use it is I'm going to oil the paper. So you see the paper is kind of rolled. That's part of the process of the tearaway technique, and it makes a rolled up paper. But over time you'll find that with the oiling and the usage of these, that you'll find that they flatten out a bit. They have a finite amount of life in them, because you are adding the oil to them, but you can always make some more. So I'm just going to lay it down on the surface of my clay, roll it in there, and then you'll be able to see what that pattern looks like. And I've taken some stills of the pattern, so that you can just see a little bit better the depth of that pattern. This was the yellow one. So I'm doing the same again now with the gold one, and you can see that's the depth of the gold one. So again, I've got a still image of that you can have a look at a little bit closer, but it's still got a nice texture on there. It's not quite as deep as the other one, but it's still quite a nice texture. So finally, this is the one that was done with a mix of gold and yellow, and you can see the texture on this one too. There's slight differences in the textures, but they're all really fantastic to use with metal clay. Thanks very much for watching.